Hello, welcome to the home of the Ghost Owl, and we're coming close to the end of this series, this faction focus on Bretonnia. We're now going to take a look at the Cavalry comparison before moving on to the final few episodes of the series. So, Bretonnia, it's built around its cavalry. The faction is kind of built around its knights, that's what it is. So, let's take a look at what cavalry is on offer and how they compare. So, we've got the Knights Errant, Knights of the Realm, the Questing Knights, the Grail Knights, the Pegasus Knights, and then the Mounted Yeomen. So, we can see here straight away, Pegasus Knights, far and away the most expensive. And then we've got the Mounted Yeomen, which is basically peasants on horses, as clearly the cheapest. Now, I think what you can see here is the value of Grail Knights and Pegasus Knights. Yes, they are expensive. But Grail Knights, which are my personal favourite, you've got the good movement base, excellent weapon skill of 6. Strength 4 is nice. Toughness is 4. Next to the Pegasus Knights, they're the only one that gets toughness 4. They've got initiative 5. Now that really, really helps them on the charge, making sure they strike before the enemy, reduce the attacks back, and they're also the only one that gets to 2 attacks base. Now you could say, well, the Pegasus Knights, with their mount, they're getting 3 attacks. With the Grail Knights, with their mount, they're getting 3 attacks. The difference here is the Grail Knights, the riders doing the attack, so on the charge with their lances, that's getting the bonus. Whereas the Pegasus Knights, the 2 attacks coming from the Pegasus doesn't get the lance bonus, right? The Leadership 9 is very strong as well, and of course they're all getting the same. So Grail Knights are by far and away my favourite. I think they're excellent. I think their stat line is excellent. They've got good rules. The Grail Vow is excellent. And they're not as expensive as the Pegasus Knights, but they're limited because of where they sit in the rare category, right? So they're actually points limited. Questing Knights, Questing Knights look okay, but they do strike last. But they have got the weapon skill 5, and they're reasonably durable. They're reasonably, they sit sort of midway points wise. They got the good initiative there as well. Compared to the Pegasus Knights, they actually got better initiative than the Pegasus Knights. And that's really the Pegasus Knight vulnerability. So that's why I wouldn't go all out on Pegasus Knights. I do think there is other things to do there. But the Pegasus Knights just offer that flying mobility. They still are strength 4, they are toughness 4. And they're 2 wound models, right? So you're paying double the points, but you're getting essentially a 2 wound model. So, that is something to consider about in terms of the durability versus all the others, which are 1 wound models. If you look at the Knights of the Realm versus the Knights Errant, there's not much between these two in terms of points per model. And on top of that, Knights Errant get impetuous. But when you look at it, 1 weapon skill, right? So the Knights of the Realm already weapon skill 4. That's good. They got the leadership 8 instead of 7. So everything else being the same, you can see why Knights of the Realm are actually just a better default for me in terms of core, and why would you take the Knights Errant unless you really need the bodies and you're struggling with points that much. But I think maybe in an all cavalry army there's a cause for taking some Knights Errant, but overall Knights of the Realm are just a better default. Mounted Yeomen, as we said, they're more a distraction and a disruption unit than actually doing anything else. So, weapon skill 3. They do get the ballistic skill 3, which helps them with the short bows, of course. They've still got initiative of 3, which is okay, but the leadership is 6. If they're operating out on their own, that makes them pretty vulnerable. So, yeah, like I say, it's a disruption unit. In terms of comparison, you can see they're not going to do much in terms of damage output, but their fast cavalry is what sticks out. Doesn't show in the stat line, but they are cheap to boot. But the save again, that's if you do spend the points to kit them out. So yeah, overall for me, I think it's clear here that Grail Knights are outstanding. The others and Knights of the Realm are outstanding for a core unit. The others are all a bit more specific that you need to think about what you're doing. The Pegasus Knights, what you're doing with them. The Questing Knights, how you're going to use it. The Knights Errant, how you're going to use it. But Knights of the Realm and Grail Knights, I think, are really good go-to units. That brings us to the end of the Cavalry comparison. Next up, we've got 2 episodes looking at 2 sample army lists, and then the final episode to wrap up the faction focus will be looking at what units are potentially missing from the faction army book. So with that in mind, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Let me know why in the comments down below. Hit the subscribe button, free for you to do, takes a few seconds, big deal for me, so thank you for that. You've been watching The Ghost Hour. Tune back in and see my first sample army list, not competitive, but for fun play on the table, and 2 different themes between the lists. Bear that in mind.